What's up, everyone? So today on Madcap Carburation, I'm going to be disassembling this Quadrajet. This is a 704202 Quadrajet. That's the identification number, and that comes out to a 1970 Quadrajet that could have came off of Camaro, Chevelle, El Camino, Monte Carlo, Chevy Nova, Corvette. It came on the. It looks like it came on the 300 and 350 horsepower engines. Anyways, let's get into this. I'm going to show you some of the tools that I use when I do this, and some of my tips and tricks. So yeah, let's get right into this and rock and roll. Alright, so first off, one of the first things I always use when taking apart pretty much most Quadrajets, depending on what the bolts are like. Flathead screwdriver, nice big one. And then also a Phillips head, because the bolts that are on the base plate that connect to the main body are Phillips instead of flathead. Then also a pick, just to get clips off and any other little pieces that need to be, shimmied out. Then next, just something to knock. Basically, this I just use this for one thing, and this is it's just an old Torx. You can use a punch or whatever. I think it's a quarter inch, I want to say, size, just to knock out the pin for the accelerator pump arm. Yeah, accelerator pump arm. And lastly, an adjustable wrench to remove your fuel inlet. You can use a 1-inch wrench to get it off. Either or, doesn't matter. I don't own a 1-inch wrench, which I probably should, but this is what I got, so this is what I use. So yeah, those are the tools. Oh, and I do have a tool for the to remove the needle and, well, not the needle, but the seat for the needle. Let me go grab that. I actually forgot that. All right, so here is the tool that I have to remove the seat. This basically, I purchased this off of quadrajetpower.com. Actually, they sell a lot of aftermarket parts and rebuild kits. And they're really good, actually. But they sell this tool to remove your seat, and this is great because you can't just use a small flathead. You need a big flathead screwdriver to get that thing out. And at the time you use one that's too small, it ends up marring it up and destroying it. But this thing has not failed me yet, and it actually has come in handy for other things as well. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but I have used this for other things. Alright, so let's dig into this Quadrajet. Alright, so first things first, the first thing that I like to do when taking these apart is I take out the secondary metering rods. They are located right here in the rear, in between your two air doors here. There's a hanger right here that holds onto them, and there's a bolt right here. Alright, so here's the bolt right here. We're just going to remove that. And then you just lift up and out they come. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the accelerator pump arm. So some of the older Quadrajets, this rod right here just has a pin on the back of it, and you can take this rod off, and then you don't have to actually remove the arm. But in this case, this one is I believe they started this in 1970. It's just the rod comes up and bends and slips into here, so you do have to actually take this whole rod out, and all you have to do is remove this pin. However, there's one more thing. This was the last year for this, but in 1970 they had this vent valve right here. Let me move this up a little bit. They had this vent valve right here, and there is actually another rod that connects to the accelerator pump to that. before you remove this, you want to take out this rod for this vent valve and all this. So to do that, you just want to remove the front screw on the air horn right here. And then underneath, this is the valve under here. Let me see. All right, there we go. All right, so right here is the vent valve. Okay, so there's a little bolt right here, and the arm connects over here on this end. And what it does is when you accelerate, I'm pretty sure it actually closes this vent. This one's kind of bent in the wrong way. It's supposed to put pressure down on it and close it, but this one isn't. It just needs to be adjusted. So first off, we're just going to remove this bolt right here. And then there's two pieces to it. The top part just slides out. And the same thing with the bottom. And then this arm right here, you're just going to lift it up, turn it, push it out. It goes in that little hole right there. All right, so now with all that removed, now we can remove the pin that holds in the accelerator pump arm. And for that, you're just going to take a punch, or like I said, this is just an old Torx bit that's destroyed, and get it in there. And now the way you want to do this, you don't want to push this thing too far, because the pin will actually go up against the choke right here, the main body, and then you won't be able to push it back, because you got to be able to get a flathead screwdriver in here and push it back out, because you're actually pushing it in. So just make sure there's enough room, and you'll know because there's going to be tension on this, because this is going to want to pop out when you pull this like this. So that's how you'll know. You'll feel the tension on it. And then basically the rod just comes out, connects right to the throttle arm right here. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the choke rod. And for that we're going to use our pick, because there is a little, actually you can open the choke rod here. There's a little clip right here that just comes right off. And you're just going to slide that rod out, turn it, and it should pop right out. See, there's a little bend at the bottom. It connects to an actuator that's inside of there, which we'll talk about how we reconnect that later. Alright, so now the next thing we're going to do is remove the remaining 8 bolts that are in the top of the air horn, so we can remove the air horn. Now, we already moved the one from the front. That would make a 9. So minus that, there's going to be 8 left. So there's 2 on the outside top here. Now, I'm particular, and I put the bolts back in the same spot they came from. You don't have to, but that's just how I do things. A lot of this older stuff, this stuff is, seated in there, and it's, when you put different bolts in, sometimes you can mess up threads and stuff, so I try to put stuff back in the same spot it was for bolts. Alright, so then the 2 longer screws, I just took those out. Those go in the back. Those actually go through the whole carburetor. They go through the main body into the base plate. And then we have 2 down inside your primaries, or underneath the choke, whatever you want to call it. And those are actually smaller bolts. And then you just have 2 left in the back. Alright, so now all your bolts are removed and this air horn is ready to come off. Now, the way that I do this, so there's this rod right here that connects from your secondary air valve doors down to your front vacuum brake. Okay. Now there's no clip on this. This is all bent, pre-bent, and you need to take the air horn off and then turn it a specific way to get it out. And then when you put it back on, it's the same thing. You can actually replace these with ones that just have clips. You can just take them off. I usually end up doing that. However, I haven't done it with this Quadrajet. I'm trying to keep this one original because this is actually the original dichromate from 1970 that's still on here. This whole thing is completely original. It's got even the original front vacuum brake. So I'm trying not to mess with this and change it up at all. So anyways, ready to take the air horn off. Now, sometimes when you're doing a rebuild, these things can get stuck because of the gaskets, you know, and all the gunk that's in there that ends up in there a lot of the times from them sitting or whatever, or ethanol gas or anything. What I like to do is I just take a nice big flat blade screwdriver, and right here, this stud coming out to hold on the the bracket for the choke mechanism, I get the flathead on there, and then I slide it underneath this part of the air horn right here, and I just pull up. Sometimes it's going to be stuck, and you know, just give it a couple taps on the end, and it'll break it loose. Okay, this one, again, we don't need to. So when we take this off, because of this rod, we're going to lift. Now your accelerator pump right here is going to follow you, so you can take that out. With these older Quadrajets, the newer ones, it's not like that. And now when we take this off, we're going to lift, turn it to its side, and this rod should actually disconnect right here. And that completes taking the air horn off. Alright, so moving on. Usually, like I said before, this is going to sit in here. I usually take it out because it gets caught with the air horn. But yeah, this is the accelerator pump. You're just going to take that out, set it to the side. Now with this gasket, a lot of people rip and tear these gaskets. I used to do it back when I first started taking these things apart. I would rip them all the time. Sometimes you can reuse these gaskets. You get the thick ones like this one, you can reuse it over and over and over. But you have to know how to take them off the right way. Now this is the way that I do it. I'm not saying it's the right way, but this is the way I do it. So there's two studs on the either side here, holding the gasket on the back. What I do is I take the gasket off of there, right? Now, the reason why this is still held on is because the primary metering rods go through the gasket. But there is a little cut, a little slit in the gasket here so that you can take the gasket off. Now what you need to do is you need to take the front of the gasket, okay, and just slowly fold it upward like this. And when you do that, it opens up the slit that's in there, and you grab the back and just slide it off. And it should come off no problem. If the gasket's dry, that's a different story. If the gasket's all dried up, don't even worry about it. Just save the gasket so that when you do get your rebuild kit, if you're rebuilding it, you know it's the same gasket that came in the kit. Alright? Alright, so next thing, we can take out this little baffle here. And basically what this does is it holds your float in. It kind of guides the metering rods, I guess, so they're not bouncing around, but I don't think that would happen. Maybe it would. Yeah, so it does kind of help with all that stuff, but mainly it holds down your float in here. Alright, so we got that out. Next thing is your primary metering rods you want to get out of there. So it's held in by this retainer right here. And, you know, it takes a little bit of pressure to get it out. If it's a newer retainer, You know, if it's one that's been in there a while, usually it'll pop out. Sometimes it'll even pop out when you take the air horn off. However, this one's newer for sure. You don't want to go yanking on this, okay? You'll bend it, and then your rods won't sit right, and then you got all sorts of problems. So, what I like to do is I like to take flathead screwdriver and go right underneath here on the rods, right in the middle post. It's like a T, it looks like, and you're going to go in the middle part of it. You can put something underneath so you don't damage any other part of the carburetor, and you just lift this up and they should come right out like that. Like I said, if it's newer and it's tighter and you're changing rods or something, it might be even tighter than that. You might need to push down a little harder. So these rods are just going to come out, and a lot of the time this power piston spring that's in the bottom, that sits down in here, it's not going to be attached like this. The reason mine is attached is I put a little bit of grease on these so they stay attached. And the reason that I do that is so that when I put this back in, this is already on the stud that's there. So when you do put it back in, it's not just like you throw this in and you're gambling like, oh, is it going to go on the stud or is it going to get caught and not slip on? I just prevent that by doing that. All right. So then we're going to set that aside. Next thing is the float. Taking out the float is very easy. You're just going to grab, this hanger right here, and you just pull up. And it takes out the float and your needle seat. Well, needle seat. The needle seat isn't even out yet. Oh, excuse me. And you want to take the seat or the needle off just so it doesn't, get messed up or anything. Set that aside. Set your float to the side. Okay. And then we'll move on to the next thing. Okay, so the next thing we'll do is we will remove the seat. Now, this is the thing I told you. You can use this tool for, or if you want, you can use a giant flathead screwdriver. I don't have one of those, but I bought one of these. And basically, it shouldn't be super tight. If you bought one that's, a Quadrajet from another car that you're rebuilding or something, it might be in there tight. There's a good chance, but it shouldn't be too tight. And there's going to be a little gasket on the bottom that sits on here. A lot of times it doesn't even come out with the seat. Sometimes it does. But, oh, this one's actually in there pretty good. Alright, so we got that out. But there's this little gasket, and this just sits right on the seat there. Okay. So next we can do, we can take out this accelerator pump spring. I could have taken that out before, but didn't think about it. So the next thing we can do is remove our check ball, which is located right underneath this cover right here. I guess it's a cover. It kind of looks like a screw. But that is just a flathead screwdriver. And again, this thing doesn't need to be super tight when you install it. And that's what that looks like. That part holds the check ball in place. Set that aside. And then your check ball is going to be down in there, and you can just turn the carburetor over to get that out. Sometimes it's stuck. You just get in there with your pick and jiggle it around and it comes out. There's that. Alright. So then after that, we'll move on and we'll go to the jets, the primary jets that are down in here and in here. And again, you can just use big flathead screwdriver, same one that I've been using. And again, these things are easy to destroy. Oops, excuse me. These are easy to destroy, so take it easy on them. Even when you put them back in, just hand tight, not insanely torqued. Here's your primary jet. This one's a 73. Like I said, originally was 76, but I ended up putting smaller air bleeds, main air bleeds in this, so you don't need as big of a jet. Excuse me. All right. So our jets are out. Our whole inside is basically taken apart. So yeah, we can move on to what is next. All right, so the next thing we're going to remove is our base plate. Actually, you know what? First we'll just take off this fuel inlet here. The housing for the fuel filter. Yeah, that's going to be... Sometimes those are on there kind of tough, hot, tight. That's the one thing that gets messed up with Quadrajets very easily, is the threads for these, because people torque down on them way too much, and they end up stripping it, cross-threading it, you know, all the things that happen to these threads. And these threads are good. There's actually some gas in there. That's crazy. Alright, so with this, there's a gasket. With this style, excuse me, Quadrajet, there is a gasket that goes on the inlet. It just slides on over the threads. Actually, I think I put that upside down. Yeah. There is no right way to put it on. It's either way. It's just how it was sealed on there. I wanted to put it back on the same way. And then you got your spring for your fuel filter, and then your fuel filter itself. Alright, so now that that's removed, I'm going to go ahead and remove the base plate. The way I do that, just flip it on over, and you're going to get your Phillips head screwdriver, and there are 2 bolts, 1, 2 on each side. We'll go ahead, remove those. Set those aside. Now, again, too, these tend to get stuck when you are taking apart a excuse me, a Quadrajet that's been sitting around for a while, or is thoroughly used. Either way, what I like to do in that situation is, if they are stuck, right here there's a little lip coming off the main body where you can sneak a flathead screwdriver inside of there, in between the base plate and the main body, and just try and work it. Go slow. Don't just work it and go slow, and it should come right off. However, this one's going to come right off because it's been off lots of times. And one of the things you want to check for with these base plates, which I do on all my rebuilds, you want to make sure those throttle shafts aren't loose. If there's too much play in here, you're going to get vacuum leaks. It's going to be no good. Also, you want to make sure that both your primary and secondary butterflies open up 45 degrees. Or what is that, 90? Yeah, something. They're open 90 degrees, right? Up and down, I think. I don't know. I never did well in math. I just know car stuff. So So we can put that aside. Now another thing too is these gaskets tend to get stuck as well when you're rebuilding a Quadrajet that's been sitting around or thoroughly used once again. So that's a fun time taking those off, I'll tell you. It's really not. But this one comes off easily. And what I usually like to do, even with the air horn gasket, I put a little bit of lithium grease on these so that they last a lot longer. Every time I've done that, I have some Quadrajets that I've had the same gasket on for, 4 or 5 years, and I've taken it apart a gazillion times, and I haven't had a problem. So, yeah, gaskets, silicone, lithium grease. Okay, so next, let's see, we can take off, I guess we can take off the choke housing, or the choke mechanism, which, this is where it's kind of a pain in the butt, but it's not. You just have to kind of have a strategy to do this. I would have to say putting it back on is more of a pain in the butt than taking it off, honestly. But to remove this whole piece, it's pretty simple. There's just a screw right there to take that off. Okay. Yeah, I think that's it. And this screw is different from all the other screws, so you're not going to mess that up. And basically this whole thing, you're just going to grab it, pull it. Oh, you need to disconnect your vacuum line that goes to your vacuum brake on the front. Okay. And then this whole thing should just slide right off. And it's going to be, there's going to be a couple of pieces to it. There's going to be a cam that actually does slide off. This thing needs to be cleaned for sure. And then you're going to have, your secondary lockout lever, which just goes on there like that. Now the other thing is, so when you took this off, there's this post on here, this guy, this ugly thing, and it slides into this hole here, which connects to an actuator or linkage or whatever you want to call it, that connects to the choke rod. Okay, that goes in through the top. And that thing, you can actually just pull that out. Dump it out, I'm sorry. But that's the little actuator that sits inside there. The fun part is putting that back together. I'll show you a little trick how to do that, how I do it. Yeah. So that's pretty much, I think that's it for the, that's it for the choke and everything. And you got the, yep, that's everything. So that pretty much covers disassembly. Like I said, this is just the way that I do it. There's many ways to do it. I try to just make it as simple as possible, because these things can be a little overwhelming and scary because there's a lot of parts to it, but really it's not that difficult. You just have to know where everything's going. If you have any questions, you can comment below, or anything you think I forgot I could add in the next video when I do reassembly. So yeah, thanks for watching, and